Hello and welcome to the presentation video of the results for Ireland's Labour Force Survey, or LFS, for Q4 2024. The LFS is a household survey carried out by the Central Statistics Office and is the official source for employment and unemployment estimates in Ireland. The official labour market classification of respondents to the survey is based on International Labour Organization, or ILO, concepts and definitions. And you can find out more information about the survey from our website or by contacting us at labour@cso.ie. The infographic shown in this slide shows some headline estimates for Q4. The employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 years in Q4 was 74.3%, an increase of 0.3 percentage points from Q4 in 2023. The unemployment rate, which is measured for persons aged 15 to 74, was 4.0%. That's down 0.2 percentage points compared with a year earlier. The labour market participation rate, measured for persons aged 15 and over, stood at 65.5%, up by 0.1 percentage points compared with Q4 last year. In terms of remote working, 539,900 people reported usually working from home. This is the lowest figure reported since the peak in Q1 2021, when 846,700 people worked mainly from home, while those who reported working sometimes at home, defined as less than half the week, has more than doubled from 193,000 in 2020 to almost 433,000. The seasonally adjusted estimates for employment rate, unemployment rate and the participation rate for each quarter over the last 4 years are shown in this slide. Seasonally adjusted, the employment rate in Q4 was 74.5%, down 0.5 percentage points on the previous quarter, while the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate was at 4.2%, down 0.1 percentage points from Q3. The seasonally adjusted participation rate was 65.7%. This is also down from 66.2% in Q3. Focusing now on the results for employment in Q4, the estimate for the number of people in employment was 2,776,400, an increase of 70,000 or 2.6% compared with Q4 2023. As mentioned already, the employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 is 74.3%. That's up 0.3 percentage points relative to a year ago. The seasonally adjusted estimate for the number in employment in Q4 was just below 2.78 million, decreasing by 4,500 or 0.2% compared to the last quarter, Q3 2024. The estimated number of people who are classified as unemployed, that is available for and actively seeking work, was 116,100, down by around 1,600 or 1.3% compared with Q4 23, giving an unemployment rate of 4.0%, down 0.2 percentage points from a year ago. The seasonally adjusted estimate for unemployment was 123,000, down 2,500 since Q3, and the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in Q4 was 4.2%, which is also down by 0.1 percentage points from the previous quarter, Q3. Now to the total labour force, comprised of all persons aged 15 and over who are classified as either employed or unemployed, was estimated to be just over 2.89 million in Q4, an increase of 2.4% compared to a year earlier. The estimated labour market participation rate for persons aged 15 and over for Q4 was 65.5%, up by 0.1 percentage points in the year to Q4. The seasonally adjusted participation rate in Q4 was 65.7%, is down 0.5 percentage points compared with the last quarter. The number of people by ILO employment classification for males and females in Q4 are shown here. There were 1,465,800 males and 1,310,600 females in employment. The employment rates for those aged 15 to 64 were 78.0% for males and 70.6% for females. While there were 65,000 males and 51,000 females classified as unemployed, the unemployment rates for males and females were 4.3% and 3.8% respectively. The number of people not in the labour force, termed inactive by ILO definitions in Q4, are shown in green. The annual change in employment classification by sex is shown here. Female unemployment decreased 6,500, while the number of males classified as unemployed increased by 4,900. There was a slightly higher increase in employment in the year for women at 38,000 compared with 32,000 for men. The changes in the number of people classified as inactive were smaller by comparison. The number of people by employment classification in different age groups in Q4 are shown here. Employment is highest among the 35 to 44, 45 to 54-year-old age groups, while the employment with an employment of 700,000 and 642,000. Youth employment for those aged 15 to 24 was 317,000 with a corresponding employment rate of 46.1%. Unemployment was highest among the 15 to 24-year-olds at 35,000. Youth unemployment in Q4 was 9.4%. The age cohort within the working age population with the lowest number of unemployed was the 55 to 64 with 13,000. The annual change in employment classification by age group is shown here. Employment rose across all age groups in the year with the exception of youths aged 15 to 24, which decreased by 9,700. The highest increases in employment were the 25 to 34-year-olds, rising 21,700. The number of working people over 65 also rose. Those classified as inactive increased the most among youths, while it fell for all other working age cohorts. The numbers of people by employment classification and by region in Q4 are shown in this chart here, while the annual change in employment classification by region is shown here. Employment was up across all regions except the Border and the Midlands region, which decreased by 4,300 and 800 respectively. The strongest increases were in the Midwest and Dublin regions. The annual change in unemployed increased the most in the Border region, with all other regions reporting minimal or negative change. Of the 2.78 million people in employment in Q4, just over 580,000 or 21% said they work part-time. Part-time underemployment, that's those who work part-time but would like to work more hours for more pay, decreased by just under 126,000 in Q4, a decrease of around 14,000 compared to a year ago. The slides here show the number of part-time workers who are classified as underemployed or not underemployed. While those that reported as underemployed decreased from 2023 and those not underemployed remained stable, both have increased since 2020 by 26.3% and 38.7% respectively. The chart in this slide shows the estimated number of persons in employment by economic activity or NACE sector compared to a year ago. Sector G, wholesale retail trade, sector decreased by 17,300. The highest increase was in Sector Q, that's human health and social work, up 17,200. And there were also increases in Sector F, construction, up by 14,700. Sector J, information and communication, up by 14,000. Sector H, transport and storage, and Sector M, professional, scientific and technical activities, were up 12,200 and 12,000 respectively. The estimated average number of hours worked per week in Q4 stood at 85.6 million hours, up 3.1 million hours per week or 3.8%. It's worth noting that this was higher than the annual increase in employment numbers, which was up by 2.6%. The chart in this slide compares the number of hours worked per week by economic sector. The largest growth in the year was in industry, which increased by almost 800,000 hours, while human health and social work and construction increased by 725 and 628,000 hours respectively. The largest decrease was in the transport and storage sector. The chart at this slide looks at the proportion of employed persons who have indicated that they work at least some of their working time at home. In Q4 2024, 1 in 5 indicated that they mainly work from home, defined as at least half of the days worked in the previous 4 weeks, with a further 16% indicating they work from home sometimes. The annual change in employment by working location and sex is shown in this chart here. Here we can see that the decline in people working mainly from home is driven by males, which decreased by 15,600 or 5.3% since last year, while females usually working from home increased by 11,500 or 4.6%. There was an increase in those who sometimes work from home, defined as less than half the week working remotely, for both males and females. As mentioned previously, the labour force increased by 68,400 or 2,892,500 in Q4. In terms of the change in the labour force, there was a positive demographic effect of 55,800 and a positive participation effect of 12,600 over the year. And this gave rise to a slight increase in the participation rate over the year from 65.4% to 65.5%. However, the seasonally adjusted participation rate decreased by 0.5 percentage points on the previous quarter. The change in the labour force by citizenship is shown in this slide. The largest increase in the labour force came from the rest of the world cohort, followed closely by Irish nationals at 33,200 and 32,400 respectively. There were 3,000 additional labour force participants from the EU, while there was a slight decrease of 200 from the UK. The annual change in those not in the labour force is also shown in this slide. The estimated number of people who are classified as not in the labour force was just over 1.5 million and was up by 1.8%. The potential additional labour force, that is people who would like to work but are either available but not actively seeking work, or are seeking work but are not immediately available to begin, was almost 114,000, an increase of 8,000 or 7.5% compared with a year ago. The annual change in composition of those not in the labour force in Q4 is shown here. As mentioned in the previous slide, the potential additional labour force increased by around 8,000 compared to Q4 last year, while there was a decrease in those who said they would like to work but are neither actively seeking work or available to start work immediately. People who did not want to work rose by around 21,000, while those who were classified as inactive and aged over 75 or over rose by around 14,000. Labour market slack, which comprises unemployed, underemployed and a potential additional labour force, is shown in the slide here for Q4 2024 versus Q4 2023. The total for labour market slack in Q4 was 355,700 people, a slight decrease of 7,300 or 2% on Q4 2023. This was primarily driven by the decline in part-time underemployment. And so in summary, the employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 years in Q4 was 74.3%, up by 0.3 percentage points in comparison to Q4 last year. The unemployment rate, which is measured for persons aged 15 to 74, was 4.0%, down 0.2 percentage points compared with a year ago. The labour market participation rate, measured for persons aged 15 and over, stood at 65.5%, up 0.1 percentage points in the year. That concludes this results presentation for the Labour Force Survey for Q4 2024. LFS quarterly results for Q1 2025 are scheduled for publication on the 22nd of May 2025. Thank you for watching.